आराधनानां सर्वेषां विष्णो राराधनं परं तस्मात् परतरं देवी तदीयानां समर्चनम्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर् गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः। गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ध्येयं सदा परिभवघ्नमभीष्ट दोहम् तीर्थास्पदं शिवविरिञ्चिनुतं शरण्यम्। भृत्यार्तिहं प्रणतपालभवाब्धिपोतं वन्दे महापुरुषते चरणारविन्दम्। नमः कमलना भाय नमः कमल मालिने नमः कमल पादाय नमस्ते कमलेक्षण। यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तग्वंह देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। Divine souls, let's first chant for a few minutes. After that, the discourse will begin. Let's close our eyes and do Roop Dhyan on Bhagwan as we chant Hari Hari Bol. Hari Hari Bol, Bol Hari Bol,
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 Bol Hari Bol,
Bol Hari Bol,
Bol Hari Bol,
Bol Hari Bol,
Hari Hari Bol, हरि बोल।
हरि हरि बोल, बोल 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 हरि बोल।
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 हरि हरि बोल, 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 बोल हरि बोल।
बोल हरि बोल।
बोल हरि बोल।
हरि हरि बोल, 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 बोल हरि बोल।
हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल। हरि बोल,
हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, 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 हरि बोल,
हरि हरि बोल, बोल 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 हरि बोल,
हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, 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 हरि बोल,
हरि हरि बोल, बोल 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 हरि बोल,
बोल हरि बोल,
बोल हरि बोल,
बोल हरि बोल,
बोल हरि बोल,
हरि हरि बोल, बोल हरि बोल,
हरि हरि बोल, बोल हरि बोल,
हरि हरि बोल, बोल हरि बोल,
हरि हरि बोल, बोल हरि बोल,
बोल हरि बोल,
बोल हरि बोल,
बोलिए वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की
जय,
श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की
जय।
Devotional listeners, now I request your full attention, and as always, please do check your cell phone to make sure it will not ring. Thank you. Yesterday, I spoke about how to gauge devotional progress. So tonight, there's a related topic, and that is precautions to take as we walk on the path of devotion. Devotion, bhakti, is done by the mind. Just like every other work that we do, devotion is also performed by the mind. There are many scriptures that have the same verse contained in them, and that is man eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. Narad Puran, Brahma Bindu Upanishad, and Panchadashi are three scriptures that have the same verse in them. The meaning is that mind is the only reason behind bondage as well as liberation. Bandhan aur moksha ka karan man hi bakhan, याते कौनियु भक्ति करू, करु मन ते हरि ध्यान. Bhakti Shatak by Jagadguru Sri Kripaluji Maharaj. Sri Maharaj Ji has simplified the words contained in many scriptures and he has put them in his scriptures. This one from Bhakti Shatak. The mind is the only worker that we have. It's not the eyes or the ears or any other sense organ. Because these senses cannot work unless mind is involved. You may be standing in front of a person and not seeing her because your mind is distracted, it's somewhere else. Someone may be greeting you, but you're not able to hear them because your mind is preoccupied. So eyes cannot work without the involvement of the mind. Ears cannot do their work without the involvement of the mind. The tongue cannot smell, cannot taste delicacies if the mind is grieving. You put a sweet, like a rasgulla or gulab jamun, on the tongue of someone, forcibly put it in the mouth of someone who is grieving. That person may eat that dessert, that sweet, but he will not be able to taste it because his mind is in grief. His mind is grieving, so he would not be able to taste that delicacy. So we think that our sense organs are the real workers, but they're not. It's the mind that is doing all the work for us. So bhakti is done by the mind. If we are going to stay away from pitfalls, if we are going to overcome the challenges on the path of devotion, then we need to make sure that the mind is healthy. We need to make sure that the mind, when it's faced with challenges, we need to make sure how to minimize those challenges. And to strengthen the mind, we need to strengthen the mind so that it can go over those challenges, so that it can transcend those challenges. So there are many, many points to keep in mind, and I will talk about some of them. One thing that we aspiring devotees should never do is to become complacent. Meaning, we must not think, oh, I've done enough sadhana. I have done so much seva, now let's stop. I have done so much satsang, enough is enough. This sense of complacency must never enter the mind. When it comes to worldly property, worldly wealth, then we should say, enough, I have enough. Hardly anyone in the world says, or thinks at least, that I have enough. But the one who is walking on the path of devotion should always think, I have enough, it's enough. Trishu naiva kartavya swadare bhojane dhane. So when it comes to worldly property, we must think, I have enough, God has given me enough. But when it comes to sadhana, satsang, seva, we must never think that's enough. Here's where greed should come in. I want to do more and more sadhana. I wish to do more and more seva. I wish to do more and more satsang. There should always be an excitement. We must keep our mind excited about seva, sadhana, satsang. Think about the time when you entered satsang. Or, as the case may be, think about the time when everything started making sense to you. How intoxicating that experience was. When you found out about Roop Dhyan, with Sri Maharajji's grace, with the grace of Jagadguru Tam Sri Kripaluji Maharaj, when you found out about Roop Dhyan, when you found out how to control the mind, that when the mind goes here and there while doing sadhana, you don't bring the mind back, because that's what we had always heard, but then you heard something so simple and so beautiful, and that was take Sri Krishna to where the mind has gone. How exciting that time was when you heard the lectures, the philosophy for the first time. Our aim should be to keep that same level of excitement, even 10 years later, even 40 years later. Same level of excitement. Not that, oh, I've heard it before. Sri Maharaji used to say, you need to hear lectures until the time comes when you attain God realization. Until then, don't ever move away from, don't ever think, I've heard enough. So we need to have that sense of excitement. I'm going to hear my Guru's philosophy, rather than thinking, oh, heard that before. Absolutely, it's been heard before, not just tens of times, or probably hundreds of times, but unless and until we have accepted it, we need to hear it. So when it comes to reading the philosophy, hearing the philosophy, and we must never become complacent that I have heard enough, I have read enough. It's never enough. I have shed enough tears, Maharaji would say, but if those tears were genuine, then Sri Krishna would have come himself to wipe them away. So you need to keep on shedding tears until he comes and wipes them away. So we need to keep on doing more and more. Rather than being greedy for the world, we must train the mind so that it is greedy for seva, satsang, and sadhana. Another point we must keep in mind is that words are very powerful. They can inspire us and they can make us feel dejected. They can take us towards God and they can take us away from God. So we must make the utmost effort to listen to the words that will inspire us. When we hear the words of our Gurudev, we are immensely inspired. If you're feeling a little bit sad, uninspired, all you need to do is to listen to the divine voice of Sri Maharaji. And it's an instant fix. His words and his divine voice, they do wonders. We must make it a point to listen to words that will make us love God, that will take us away from the vices of Maya, that will inspire us to go towards God. Sri Maharaji told us a story of a time when he was in a district in India called Banda. And Sri Maharaji was being hosted by a lawyer by the name Balveer Singh. That lawyer told Maharaji a story, very intriguing story, true story. He said, Maharaji, there were two cousin brothers, and they were disputing with one another regarding a piece of land, some property. They couldn't resolve the conflict, so they took their matter to court. Both of them fought the case, and as it is natural, one of them won the case, the other one lost. So the winner of the case, he's now the owner of this property, which was in dispute, no longer in dispute. He is the owner of this property. It's been established by the court. So he is very happy, and he's gloating also. The other one, the other cousin, he's naturally very sad because he's lost the case. So these two cousins, they lived next door to each other. So one day, the winner, he was walking, he was going somewhere, and he was walking and he passed in front of his cousin's house. He saw that his cousin and the cousin's mother, so his own aunt, they were both sitting on a cot outside their house, looking very dejected. Their eyes were cast down, and there was just a look of sadness on their faces. So this man, who had won the case, he was gloating about his victory, and he had a handlebar mustache. So he twirled it like this, which is meant, what he meant to say was, see, I won and you lost. So he was gloating. So both the son and the mother, mother and son, they saw this man, and the mother became so angry that she said to her son, Beta, if you are indeed my son, then you will show this man, you will show this man what it means to mock us like this. So when the young man heard his mother's words, he became so angry himself, he became so excited, and he went inside the house, picked up a big, thick stick, and hit his own cousin on the head with such force that the man fell down and died on the spot. True story. The man died on the spot. So then now there's another case. It's a murder case this time, not a property case. And this man was asked, why did you kill this man? And he said, because he went like this. He twirled his mustache. But was that the reason? No. The reason was that the words that his mother had spoken, those words are the ones that made this man so angry that he actually killed his cousin. Words can be so dangerous. So dangerous. Kaikeyi's maid, Manthara, kept on talking to Kaikeyi. Are you going to allow Bharat to just be a servant to Ram? Ram will become the king. And your son, Bharat, he deserves to be the king. Kaikeyi said, what are you talking about? Stop talking, she scolded Manthara. Manthara was relentless. She kept on talking. And Kaikeyi listened to those words, and her mind was changed. Of course, it was a leela, but it's a realistic situation, isn't it? When somebody's talking to you, telling you again and again, whatever that person is saying, that is going to have an effect on the mind. So we must be very cautious. We must protect our mind. We must make sure, as much as we possibly can, we must make an utmost effort to listen only to the words that are going to inspire us. We must not listen to nonsense. We must say, no, I'm not interested. We tend to say that, I don't want to be rude. But that politeness is of no value, because we are going to harm our mind greatly just for the sake of being polite. So we must be very careful. And for ourselves, we must speak little. I remind you of what I had shared with you yesterday. Kam bolo, meetha bolo, mantra by Sri Maharaj Ji. Speak little, don't speak too much, don't talk much. But when you do speak, speak sweetly, so that your words will have a very nice effect on the person who is listening to them. Because when we say something, when we speak, before that we have thought about it. We have thought about it, and then we have spoken those words, and the person who's listening to us, he or she will think about what we have said. So we are harming not only ourselves, we're harming the other person as well, if we are speaking indiscriminately. We must make sure that pride does not get the better of us. Pride is a thief. It's a very sneaky thief. It just waits for the smallest little opportunity to attack us. We don't even think we have become proud. What is this to be proud of? And yet we have become proud, to the extent that we become proud of the sadhana we are doing. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then from 5 to 7 a.m. I'm doing sadhana. Why are you talking about it? Why does everybody in satsang know that you're doing sadhana from 5 to 7 a.m.? Why does everybody in the satsang know that you offer bhog to God every single morning and then you offer so many different delicacies? Why does everybody know this? It should be a secret. Everybody knows it, and now there is a lot of pride in the heart. Everybody in satsang knows, oh, you know, she does this every day. And then everybody talks about it. They look upon you with reverence. Wow, you do that. You know, I don't do that. You do that. Wow. And then there is a sense of being better than everybody else, because I'm doing sadhana from 5 to 7 a.m. and I'm offering bhog every morning, and everybody knows it. Wrong. Whether we're doing sadhana or satsang or seva, it must be kept very quiet so that nobody finds out about it. Because if everybody finds out about it, even if 1 or 2 people, we make a concerted effort to let some people know, then it means that our pride is going to be increasing greatly. And in Radha Govind Geet, Sri Maharaj Ji says, प्रेमी जनों को गोविंद राधे 4 वृत्तियाँ अनिवार्य बता दे, दीनता उदारता गोविंद राधे, सरलता और अरु सहनशीलता बता दे। दीनता का अर्थ यह गोविंद राधे, मन की निरहंकारिता बता दे। सबका सम्मान करो गोविंद राधे, सबके हैं उर बैठे कृष्ण बता दे। A sadhak, an aspiring devotee, must possess 4 qualities, 4 virtues: Deenata, Udarata, Saralta, Sahanshilta, humility, generosity, simplicity, and tolerance. These 4 are anivarya, absolutely necessary for a sadhak to make progress. So humility is extremely dear to God, and we want the grace of God, so we must work actively on reducing our pride and making sure that we watch out for pride, because again, it's a very sneaky thief. It takes all our sadhana away. We have practiced sadhana, we have practiced devotion, and pride comes and says, let me snatch it all away. All the sadhana that we did, it's taken away by pride. Ishwarasyapyabhiman dveshitva dainya priyatva cha. Narad Ji says that God loves humility and He has an aversion to pride. He hates pride. So we need to be very actively working on humility, increasing humility, and thereby reducing our pride. It won't happen all of a sudden. It won't happen by itself. We need to be aware of it. We need to be, first of all, aware that there is a lot of pride inside. A lot of pride in my heart. Because jane te chi jahi kachu papi. It's only when we are aware of our shortcomings that we can work on them. It's only when we are aware of our vices that we can work on getting rid of them. It's only when we are aware of our faults that we can work on correcting them. So we must be very actively, we must be very aware. So humility is very important. Shri Krishna has set such a great example for us. Deenata namrata ki सीमा देखो, नम्रता की सीमा देखो, गोविंद राधे, पत्तल उठा के झूठे श्याम शिक्षा दे. In the Rajasuya Yajna of the Pandavas, Shri Krishna Bhagwan, Purnatam Purushottam Bhagwan Shri Krishna, is picking up after the Brahmins have finished eating. He's picking up the leaves from which they have eaten. The Supreme Lord is doing such menial service. Sri Maharaj Ji, Jagadguru Sri Kripaluji Maharaj used to emphasize that the lower the service, the lower the seva, the more beneficial it is. Sri Maharaj Ji would say to the devotees, to the satsangis, he would say, clean the gutters in Mangar. And if you say, ooh, that's so filthy, then understand that there's much more filth inside your body. Why are you making a face? Clean the gutters, sweep the floor, sweep the grounds. The lower the service, the more beneficial it is. The more it will make you, the humbler it will make you. It will get rid of your pride. Sri Maharaj Ji himself would take up the broom and he would sweep Mangar. When construction was going on, Sri Maharaj Ji was the first one to go there. He would pick up those containers, he would pick up the bricks, he would pass them to devotees. He would do so much, and if devotees if they would stop him, if we'd ever stop him, Sri Maharaj Ji would chase us away and say, go do your work. Sri Maharaj Ji would perform the menial services. You have seen in photos and videos, Sri Maharaj Ji is picking up the plow and he's picking up the spade. And you could think, oh, that was a photo op. But Sri Maharaj Ji was actually actively engaged in doing these sevas. He taught us through his personal example. He set an example for us. When the great bhogs were being arranged, then Sri Maharaj Ji, under Sri Maharaj Ji's supervision and through his inspiration, they're still going on. Sri Maharaj Ji would himself bend down and he would give the donation to everyone. He would fold his hands. Now what is the need? What was the need for him to fold his hands? He didn't need to learn humility. He did that to set an example for all of us. That if you give something to someone, don't do it with pride. Give it with gratitude, feelings of gratitude in your heart that God has given you the ability to share what you have. And be grateful to the one who's accepting it. Rather than saying, oh, I'm giving this to you, here, take it. Sri Maharaj Ji would say that so many people, if they're going in somewhere in the car and the beggar comes and says, please Babuji, kuch de dijiye, they would throw a coin at him. Le, like this, here. And they would throw it down, so he'd have to go and look for it. Where did the coin fall? That is pride. Sri Maharaj Ji himself set an example of humility, how one must be humble, and also of tolerance, how tolerant, how a person should be, how all of us need to be tolerant. So humility and tolerance and simplicity and generosity, these are the 4 virtues that Sri Maharaj Ji has talked about for aspiring devotees to develop. Also, we must be careful that we're not paying lip service to God. Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva, you're my only mother, my only father, and yet not believing that. That does not mean that we should not utter these words. Or we should not utter the words, Nita seva mangu shama sham teri. O Radha and Krishna, I desire to serve you for all eternity. Oh, I'm not doing that, so I shouldn't sing these words. No, it's the other way around. We're singing these words, so we should try to follow them. We should try to actually feel them, feel those words, and live by those words. What we do is we are singing Nitya Seva Mangu, and as we sing these beautiful words, divinely beautiful words, we get a couple of tears in the eyes. We even shed tears. And then when it's all done, we wipe the tears away, and then we have been asking for seva, and seva is staring us in the face, but we say, okay, well, I'm going now. But you are asking for seva, or somebody else can do it. The sheets have to be folded, the carpet has to be vacuumed. There are so many sevas everywhere, in every ashram, in every temple, everywhere there is so much seva. The hungry donation box needs to be fed. Is there lack of seva? No. But if we're just singing the words, Nit Seva Mangu, Nit Seva Mangu, we can't pull the wool over God or Guru's eyes. That there's no feeling to do seva, but we're just saying, I want seva, I want seva. So it's not that we should not sing those words until we become like that. Rather, we should sing them and be inspired by those words. That God is my one and only. My only mother, my only father, my only brother, my only everything. Companion, my only wealth, my only knowledge, my one and only. So when we speak these words, we must not just pay lip service. Lip service it should not even be given to the world, but in the world we've become accustomed to it. But we should not try to fool God or Guru. It's an offense. We must also be very careful about protecting our mind from the wrong kinds of foods and drinks and wrong type of literature, movies, TV shows, and whatnot. The food we eat definitely helps or harms our body, and also it helps or harms our mind. Ahara shuddhau sattva shuddhi, sattva shuddhau dhruva smriti. Chandogya Upanishad says, if you're eating pure food, vegetarian food, food which is not overspiced, overcooked, overfried, that food is sattvic food. And if you're eating that pure food, sattvic food, then your mind will become pure. And with a pure mind, it is going to be that much easier to practice devotion. It'll be so much easier to do Rup Dhyan. So this is why it is said, you are what you eat. The mind is shaped by the food we consume and by the drinks we consume. Why is drinking alcohol considered to be one of the 5 mahapap? One of the biggest sins. It's because by drinking alcohol, an individual's mind does not remain the same. The mind becomes affected. He becomes intoxicated, so the mind is not able to take the right decisions. And God says, I gave you this wonderful mind, and with this mind you are supposed to think of me, and you have made this mind, you have altered it, you have spoiled it by drinking alcohol. So that's why drinking alcohol is one of the biggest sins. So we must be very cautious about what we are eating and what we are drinking and what we are watching, because everything that we see, every scene that is in front of us, it does affect our mind. We are not like Surdas, Tulsidas, Mirabai, Kabir Das. These are saints. They are not affected by anything. There is a tree, Chandan tree, the sandalwood tree. Chandana Vishwavyapay nahi lipate rahat bhujang. The sandalwood tree is very unique in that there are very deadly and poisonous snakes that make this tree their home. So they wind themselves around the tree. But the tree is not affected by the poison of these snakes. However, every tree is not the sandalwood tree. We are not like the sandalwood tree. We are going to be affected by everything that we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. Everything. So we should practice discretion. Many people say, I'm not fussy about eating, I'll just eat whatever. But and many people say, I love junk food. Well, who doesn't eat junk food? Of course. I think almost everybody eats junk food. But to eat plenty of it, it just means junk is what? Garbage. So I'm just putting garbage into my mouth. Tasty garbage. Oh, how tasty it is. But garbage is garbage, it's junk food. So if we are putting junk in our mouth, this garbage in our mouth, we are putting garbage in the mind too. we're definitely putting garbage in the mind. This is something we need to think about. So it's not good to say, well, I eat whatever, I'm not picky. We must be picky and choosy because our mind is going to be affected. The company we keep, it's going to affect us. What we see in front of us is going to affect us. We are just neophytes. We are just beginners on the path of devotion. The ones who were really very great devotees, they had not attained God realization. They fell from their high stage that they were at. They fell down because of kusang, damaging association. We hear about Saubhari Muni, who was so advanced that he was meditating underwater. He would submerge himself in the Yamuna and he would practice meditation. One day he saw two fish mating and he thought, oh, I am depriving myself of carnal pleasures, so I should get married. Immediately he came out of the water and he went to the king, Mandhata, and he said, you have 50 daughters, I want one of them as my wife. And the king panicked. He thought, how do I say no to him? Because he may put a spell on me, may put a curse on me, but how can I be so unfair to any one of my 50 daughters? So cleverly the king said, Maharaj, come back tomorrow and we shall hold a swayamvar and my 50 daughters will be in front of you and any one of them who chooses you will put a flower garland around your neck. And is that agreeable to you? And Saubhari thought, you're being clever. He said, yes, very agreeable, that's fine. So Saubhari Muni went home, went away, and he was an old man by this time, long, gray hair, white hair, and he was very old. So he thought, the king has played a trick on me. Of course, none of his daughters will choose me, but the king doesn't know my powers. So using the powers of yoga that he had, he transformed himself into a very handsome young man. When he went back the next day, the king didn't recognize him until he told the king the whole story. I have used my powers of yoga, I've become young. So the daughters, the princesses were brought before Saubhari, and all of them placed the garland around his neck. All 50 of them chose him in the Swayamvar. Now the king thought, now this is another problem now. How can 50 of them get married to the same man? But Saubhari Muni, understanding what the king was thinking, he said, no, I have a solution for this. I have done a lot of sadhana, yoga sadhana, and I will use my powers of yoga to assume 50 bodies. And he did that. He assumed 50 bodies, he lived with 50 wives in 50 palaces, and he spent many, many years in wedded bliss, and they had many children. He had many children from 10 children each from each one of his wives, and it was a huge household now. Many, many years passed. And Saubhari Muni did not think about God. He did not think about God. But one fine day, after years and years, now he has children and grandchildren, he was just sitting down by himself and he thought, what did I do? What have I done? And he cried out, Aho imam pashyatame vinasham. Are manushyo mera vinash to dekho. Look at me, what have I done to myself? I was meditating underwater and now here I am with this huge household. I've become such a householder. I have so many wives and so many children and grandchildren. It's like a city inhabited by one family. He came to his senses after years and years. And what caused all this? He just saw two fish mating. He just saw them for less than a second and his mind became corrupt. And we hear of so many others. So we are nowhere near the level of Saubhari Muni. We should not think, oh, nothing can harm me. We are being harmed, and yet we are thinking nothing can harm me. We're like that parrot that was warned by its owner. The parrot liked to go out of the cage and fly in the sky, and the owner said, well, I've got to teach the parrot something that will help this parrot of mine to be safe. So he taught the parrot, the hunter has laid his trap, do not fall into the trap. And the parrot learned these words, the hunter has laid his trap, do not fall into the trap. So one day it was flying in the sky, saw that the hunter had laid a trap, and there were some nice seeds over there, and the parrot became very intrigued and went and got trapped in the net. At the same time, the parrot is saying, the hunter has laid his trap, do not fall into the trap. It has fallen into the trap, but it's saying, do not fall into the trap. We are saying, I'm not going to be affected, and we are being affected at the same time. We should not have this arrogance. We shouldn't be arrogant enough to think that we cannot be harmed. We are easily affected. We are easily affected by the company we keep, the foods we eat, what we listen to, the music we listen to, the shows we watch, everything. It's affecting us. So that is all. We must stay away from that kusang. But another form of kusang is something that doesn't sound like kusang. It doesn't sound like it's damaging to us. And that is, if you are following your guru's teachings, and you are now sure that these are the teachings you're going to follow, then don't go around listening to many other philosophies. Because then you're neither here nor there. You are learning the principles of devotion, that you are the servant, Shri Krishna is the master, you must serve him. Then you go to listen to someone else who says, Aham Brahmasmi. You are Brahma, I am Brahma, you are Brahma, we are all Brahma. So where is this concept of master and servant? No such thing. He's on the path of Gyan, so to speak. You're following the path of devotion. You're learning about humility, you're learning about servitude, seva, and then you hear that you are God. Here you're learning you're a servant of God. The Jnani says, Soham, I am that, I am Brahma. The devotee says, let me put a da in front of your so. So he says, Dasoham, I am his servant. So the Jnani says, let me put a sa in front of your da. So Sadasoham, I am always Brahma. And the devotee says, no, let me put a da in front of your sa. So Dasa Dasoham, I am the servant of his servants. And this keeps on going. So you are walking on the path of devotion, and you have come to settle down on this path, and you are very happy with it, you are making progress, then why go anywhere else to listen? Have deep respect for everyone, but do not go around listening to others. Because life is short, and you have finally settled, we have finally settled on one path, one guru, one form of God, then why go here and there? Who does this? Shopping around all life long and never making a purchase? Or you made a purchase and you think maybe there's a better thing out there. So being wishy-washy like this, sometimes here, sometimes there, then we go nowhere. We don't reach anywhere. And also, we must not try to read the scriptures. Well, I'm going to read the Vedas. I'm going to get the English translation. We can't understand the Vedas. Even in the English translation? No. Even the one who wrote it didn't understand it. If he's a material person, if he's God realized, then that is correct. Even then, how are we going to understand those difficult concepts? And every scripture has a clause in it that says, don't pick me up and read it, unless you are a true lover of God. In other words, only a saint has a right to pick up a scripture. Then how are we going to learn? We're going to learn it through the Guru. He's a saint. He will simplify all the concepts and he will tell them to us. He will explain them to us. We will understand, and we are understanding. It is incredible how much we have come to understand through Sri Maharajji's grace. Even children in Sri Maharajji's satsang have understood so much. We didn't learn all that by reading scriptures. We didn't learn all that by reading the Gita or the Purans, and forget about the Vedas, they are so difficult. We didn't learn everything we know by reading books, by reading scriptures, holy books. We learned only by listening with faith. That's how we learned. And this is what the scriptures say, learn from the Guru. The scriptures have never said, read the scriptures. No. Even the Ramayana says, Jai Shraddha Sambal Rahit Nahi Santan Ko Saath Tin Kah Manas Agam Ati Jinhi Na Priya Raghunath. If you don't love Bhagwan Sri Ram, if you don't have deep love for him, if you're not guided by a saint, a guru, a true guru, if you don't have 100% faith in God, then do not pick up this Ramcharitmanas. Do not pick up the Ramayana. Sri Maharaji would say, you can pick up the Ramayana and read it from the story point of view, from Bhagwan's Leelas, from the point of view of reading the sweet pastimes of Bhagwan Sri Ram, but not from the point of view of knowledge. Because there are statements made even in the Ramayana, which people think is the easiest scripture because of the language, Tulsikrit Ramayana, because it's not written in Sanskrit. Yet even in the Ramayana, Tulsidas ji says at one point that the Jnani, the one who walks on the path of Gyan, is especially dear to God. At another point he says, no, the Jnani and the devotee are the same to God. Then at another point he says, one who does not practice devotion and simply walks on the path of Gyan is not dear to God. Then at another point he says, the Jnani who doesn't practice devotion, he is the biggest fool, the biggest fool of all. One who wants to cross the ocean without the help of a boat. Then finally he says the Jnani who does not practice devotion is like a hideous looking animal, an animal without horns and tail. How are we going to make any sense out of these conflicting statements? Jnani Prabhu hi Vishesh Pyara. On the one hand, he's especially dear to God, and on the other end of the spectrum, Ramchandra ke bhajan binu je chah pad nirvan jnanavant apiso nar pashu binu pooch vikhan. Pashu, he's like an animal without horns and tail, a hideous looking animal. Only a guru can make sense out of these statements, and Sri Maharaji has done that. Only a guru can make sense out of the scriptures, and he feeds them to us like a mother feeds her child, her newborn child. Sri Maharaji always simplified the knowledge of scriptures, simplified it to such an extent that there could be nothing simpler. Sri Maharaji used to say, if you find a philosophy out there that is simpler than this, you bring it to me and I will change my philosophy. That's a challenge he has posed to the whole world. And nobody has found anything remotely close to his teachings, because they're so simple and they are as deep as they are simple. Children can understand that philosophy. Sri Maharaji would, in a lecture, he would say, I think you have not understood this. And how did he know? Because he could read everybody's mind. I think you have not understood this. Let me explain it in this way. I think some of you have not still understood. Let me explain it in this way. Then he would say finally, Gadhe ki akal se samjho. Understand in layman's language. I'm making it simplest. I'm telling you in a simplest way. There's nothing simpler. And he would not stop explaining until we understood it. Why go through the scriptures? And by reading the scriptures, we will get nothing but confusion. Tulsidas ji says, if you enter the vast jungle called the scriptures, then the more you read those scriptures, the more you go into this dense forest, this jungle, the more entrapped you will become, more entangled, more lost you will become. In other words, the more you read scriptures, the more confused you will become. So the scriptures we should be reading are Prem Ras Siddhant, philosophy of divine love. Bhakti Shatak, Radha Govind Geet, Shama Sham Geet, and the rest. Main Kaun, Mera Kaun. We should be reading them, we should be listening to Sri Maharajji's lectures given on these. But we must not read the scriptures because we'll become more confused than we are already. And it is very possible that by reading these scriptures, we will become atheists one day. Many people who have read the scriptures, they were not able to make sense out of them. So what they concluded was that, oh, the scriptures don't make sense, they became atheists. So that is also a kusang, that is also harmful for us. We must protect our mind because it's the mind that practices devotion. So these are some of the ways in which we can protect our mind. There are many more, but these are the main ones. बोलिए श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की जय, श्रीमद् युगल सरकार की जय, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे।